And before your very eyes right now, AJ is slowly but surely falling asleep in every way except for actually falling asleep. How long have you been awake right now?
Since midnight.
Good God. I'll shoot with you guys. It's almost 5 o'clock, so...
Well, I had already been up all day the day before, so I went to sleep at 7 p.m. and then woke up at midnight. And now it is almost 5 o'clock p.m.
This right here is dedication, folks. Dedication to movies. Not necessarily to Pop, though that's there, obviously, because he wouldn't be here every week if he didn't. But dedication to watching movies. That's pretty much what you've done constantly. Writing, movies, everything. Movies in general. Your life revolves around movies. So there you go. So, we do have... I don't know where that accent came from. We do have 4 movies for today. 2 of which we just got out of, literally. And 2 of which we watched on Tuesday. So, AJ, without any further ado, take it away.
Alright. The first one is a movie. I don't know if many people would have heard of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a small indie movie.
A little indie movie that could.
Yeah.
Like Slumdog Millionaire.
Talking about that's funny you mentioned that.
Yes.
Obviously, we're talking about the Hunger Games.
Of course.
Catching Fire, which, I'll go ahead and mention this now that you brought it up, is written by, I actually don't know. My research doesn't blend with the credits. I don't know what's going on.
Meaning?
IMDb credits 2 Oscar-winning screenwriters for this movie.
Okay.
Simon Beaufoy, who did Slumdog.
Yeah.
Who wrote Slumdog. Who was credited. And IMDb credits Michael Arndt, who wrote Little Miss Sunshine and Toy Story 3.
Yes.
That was not Michael Arndt's name that came up. Does he go under another name sometimes, or do they?
I don't think so.
Sometimes they do that. I don't know, but regardless, this is coming from Oscar-winning screenwriters. That's the point. So there's a lot of, and the reviews are insane.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positivity going towards this movie.
Got officially $25 million for last night's midnight shows.
I saw it was estimated for $160 million over the weekend.
It'll do. I think it actually is going to do more than that, honestly.
And we've added some people. Obviously, we lost some people in the cast, and then we've added some people in the cast. We'll get to that in a second.
Correct.
I'll throw some plot at you real quick. Basically, we immediately start with Katniss being, number 1, overly paranoid, and number 2, hallucinating from the post-traumatic stress of the games.
Of course.
The first movie. Before her and Peter are going on this, whatever, it's like a winner's tour where they
Victory tour.
They go to each, yeah, that's it.
Yep.
They go to like each district and say, hey, sorry, we killed your people. And then they go to the next one.
While they're staring at giant images of them.
And their cheerleader / manager, Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Banks is just as, if not more awesome in this one than she was in the last one.
Completely agree.
Elizabeth Banks in these movies is award-worthy.
Yeah.
I really love her in these movies.
It is official.
What?
As before he continues, it is official. Michael Arndt does go under the name Michael De Bruin.
Okay, I thought so. I don't know why that would be. He's an Oscar-winning screenwriter. I don't know why you'd hide your name, but maybe it's embarrassment over the Star Wars 7 thing.
Yeah, possibly.
It's worth noting that they've changed directors. The first one was by Gary Ross, who did Pleasantville and Seabiscuit. Mm-hmm. This is Francis Lawrence, who, if I'm remembering correctly, did I Am Legend and Water for Elephants. And all 4 of those are great movies, so you think, you're going to have great quality. The thing is Lawrence, I totally got sidetracked from the plot, but I'll go back after I mention this thought now. Thanks. Gary Ross is great, especially when he did Pleasantville.
Yes.
Which is like a favorite.
Love Pleasantville.
But when Gary Ross did the first Hunger Games, I don't know what he was going for, but the fucking shaky cam was like almost completely unbearable, and he'd get these really weird ass shots. I remember specifically when Effie is drawing out the names, and we get this weird shot that's over her shoulder for no goddamn reason.
Yeah.
Francis Lawrence is much cleaner when he does that. When he has a... He's not really trying to do anything gimmicky. He's doing it as like a whole picture thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even people who don't care about this shit will more than likely see a massive difference in the way
the movies are shot.
Yeah. So to continue the plot, as we saw in the very last scene of the first one, obviously Donald Sutherland's pissed off because they beat the system.
Yep, you can't do that. And
it was one of those, Donald Sutherland's going to swear revenge. It's clearly, that's what the whole last shot of the first movie was. And sure enough, he has decided that he is going to do this, they didn't call it this, but it's basically the Hunger Games All-Stars edition.
Yeah, it's the quarter quell. Apparently, like every 25 years, they are allowed to have one. It's part of the rules.
So he brings back all the winners, and then of course, winners from each district.
Yes.
Sometimes they're like when they do. If I saw the scene correctly, it was kind of hard to tell, but I'm assuming Haymitch, Peta, and Katniss are the only winners ever from their district.
That would be correct.
Because they actually took the trouble to draw Katniss's name from the women's side.
It had to be official.
But I was like, did they cut off another girl, or is the joke here that she's in it? Because they probably mentioned that in the first one, but I don't remember. I've only seen the first one twice.
It's been a while since.
But I have a really vivid memory of it for some reason.
Yeah.
As you saw in the last review.
Indeed.
We won't go there. And of course, they clearly killed off Wes Bentley between movies, because they bring that up every 5 goddamn minutes.
Yeah.
Though there is the funny scene where you're supposed to... They do this... you're supposed to demonstrate what you can do.
I love this.
For Philip Seymour Hoffman for 10 minutes. So she takes the dummy you're supposed to use, and she draws Wes Bentley's beard on it and writes his name across the chest and hangs it. And of course...
Hoffman was pleased.
Of course, Hoffman is Wes Bentley's replacement. He is, he's the new Kristoff.
Yes.
Only he's a lot more hardcore, and he promises Donald Sutherland that he's going to make sure Katniss dies at this time. And then it goes from there.
It's all about moves and counter moves.
Yeah. And of course she has a couple of heart-to-hearts with Lenny Kravitz before he's taken out of the picture right before the game. So, like, literally, they... like to fuck with her head, like right before she goes into the game. She's like, oh, by the way, you have to watch Lenny Kravitz get the shit beat out of him.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes from there. And of course, it being a sequel, the games are more hardcore. It has a harder start. It has harder obstacles.
Correct.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is a madman, and he's like just fucking shit up.
He's awesome. Right. He's awesome.
So, I will say that, okay, we'll talk about some returning characters. Obviously, we won't even go into Jennifer Lawrence because that's obvious. Obviously, Gale's here, which means Liam Hemsworth is here.
He is more boring than Edward in Twilight.
That's
the vibe I got from the opening scene. It was very Twilight-esque.
Well,
I don't know if you saw that or not.
Well, there's always going to be comparisons because of the young adult thing.
I gotcha.
Every young adult franchise from now on is going to be compared to the others.
Divergent coming out next year.
But okay. Liam Hemsworth has had 3 movies this year that I can remember. He may have one that's so not important I can't even remember it. He had Paranoia, which opened at number 13 at the box office, despite having fucking Harrison Ford in it.
Terrible.
He did a movie called Love and Honor that came out in March, which was about a soldier that, like, goes AWOL for his love. Nobody saw that. Nobody knows what it is. And he did Empire State with Dwayne Johnson, and it ended up going straight to DVD.
How'd that happen?
That tells you how much faith the industry has in Liam Hemsworth. His brother, however, is doing just fine. Yes, he is. And then you have Hutcherson. Hutcherson is this fucking... I'm sorry, I know the fan base is probably the people that managed to track down this video somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for insulting you all like this. I'm sorry, just dislikes all over the place. I'm sorry. But people buy into this just as easily as always.
Yeah.
Whether you suck at acting or whether you're okay, if you are the male lead in a young adult franchise, you will become the next big thing by default.
Yeah, of course.
And that is Hutcherson here. I mean, Hutcherson has a lot of really well-liked movies, like Bridge to Terabithia, attached to his name. But nobody really gave a fuck until, like, nobody even knew his name.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can find Little Manhattan, I would check that out, too.
Isn't that Zachary Ty Bryan?
No. But Hutcherson's another one of those people that just, I don't know. He's like, for me, he's like that thing that gets stuck under your fingernail that you can't reach.
Interesting way to put it.
And he has no charisma or anything. So, having said that, what made this movie really fun was, for the most of this movie, PETA's just getting totally fucked up.
Yes.
He gets his heart broken like 3 times before they're even in the games. Then they're in the games for maybe 10 minutes, and he almost drowns.
Mm-hmm.
Then and they have to, like, resuscitate him. Okay. And then when they're finally out of the water, he runs into a massive force field and gets blown across the woods. Then he's the first victim of the poisonous fog. And then he disappears. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this movie is good, by the way. I should probably mention that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's, like I said, we'll do the really short 20-second review for those people that, don't have patience or attention spans. I'm being really bitter to our viewership today. I'm sorry.
God wonders what's going to happen with Versus today.
Oh, shit, what was I saying now?
You're being bitter.
I think it's, I can't say it's better than the first one, but I don't think the first one's better either. I think they're pretty much on par with each other.
I agree with that.
Because this has its great parts and has its dull parts, and the other one had great parts and dull parts. So, but they're both good. So they're pretty much on the same level of good. But I wouldn't. The reviews it's getting are a little. I'd probably take those out of your head to avoid disappointment.
Yeah. Because
they're very overwhelming. Another, like I was talking about the new obstacles. There is the force field that turns out to be an entire dome. It's basically like a less fatal version of the force field in Cabin in the Woods. It even looks the same.
It has a Hemsworth in it too.
If only
he was the one.
If only Liam had the same outcome as Chris in Cabin in the Woods.
I completely 100% agree with that.
Only. At least we got to see PETA get blown across the woods by it.
I don't hate Hutcherson as much as you do, apparently.
I don't know. It's not him as a person, if that helps.
His characters are just unlikable, is that what you're saying?
There's also, in the first movie we had the dogs.
Mm.
In this we get big-ass baboons.
Yeah.
That are pretty much like the flying monkeys, aka the flying big-ass gorillas in Oz the Great and Powerful. That's pretty much what they are without the flying wings.
True.
And there's, basically it works as this, this isn't really a spoiler. They reveal it late, but it's not really a spoiler because it's not really that important. The whole, I sound like I hate it. I really don't, I promise.
I can tell you don't hate it.
I'll get to the positivity in a second. The whole arena is basically a big ass clock.
Yes.
With like lightning, and then there's like a giant face like a clock, not like the Man on the Moon or some shit. So Philip Seymour Hoffman gets this idea to start fucking with him even more. So he starts to turn the face of the clock, and there's this big action moment where they have to hang on while it's spinning. That reminded me so much of a mini game from Mario Party.
Oh God!
Especially the way they were falling off.
That's a brilliant deduction. I totally agree with that.
And I got I'm sorry, I'm insulting this movie so much. I really did like it.
I could...
But there's another moment. Okay, this moment started off unintentionally funny, but then it did something really serious, and it's got a point to make. Okay. A compliment. Finally, I found one.
There we go.
Okay.
And he's going to slap him down.
Well, okay, look, it started off as something that I thought was kind of dumb, but then when I realized the point the scene was making, I was like, oh wow, that's actually quite profound.
Okay.
So let me explain. It's when the baboons come out and they're tearing shit up.
Yeah.
I expect to see the scarecrow, like, off in the corner saying, first they took my legs out and they threw it over there, and then they took my chest out and they threw it over there. But anyway, the baboons come out and then they're being attacked. And then there's this girl that's covered herself in, like, the Martin Sheen at the end of Apocalypse Now war paint, and she's hiding. And she comes out like she's gonna do this big badass Rafiki and the Lion King saves the day at the end moment. And she's immediately killed.
Yeah.
She makes this big triumphant entrance and she's just immediately taken out.
She's mentioned at the beginning of the movie, but when they announce all the tributes, but
that's
it.
And then, it bites like her neck.
Yes.
And then they take her out and they take her out like Bubba in Forrest Gump and she dies by it in the water. And they make it this big dramatic moment when she dies. And then I was like, who the fuck was that? And then Hutcherson says, she saved my life and I didn't even know her. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you for pointing that out, Hutcherson. I was wondering if anybody else saw that. I think what the point that scene was getting to was, you watch a lot of movies like this where a lot of characters we don't know die and they make it dramatic.
Yeah.
And then critics complain, why are you making this death so dramatic? We didn't even know this person. Well, I think the point of that is, not many people that are in the Hunger Games with each other associate with each other.
Correct.
So that feeling of whether you knew that person or not, they're dying under the same circumstances that you could potentially die. And I think that's why it's so dramatic to them.
Makes sense.
And just as human beings, it's, whether you know somebody or not, if you watch somebody die, especially if that person saved you, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
If you're a normal person, if you're into that.
Okay.
there are those people.
Mm-hmm.
They're called serial murderers.
Yes.
Alright, we'll talk about the new cast members. Woody Harrelson comes back too, but he doesn't really get to do... He has his, he does his Haymitch thing, but he doesn't really get, like, a big moment, or he doesn't really do anything massively important. He's, I guess it's worth noting that he and PETA basically make this pact of if one gets called on, the other is going to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Haymitch got called on, because we got to get PETA in there. Got to get Hutcherson his screen time. But, no, it's not Hutcherson's fault. I know the books. It's probably worth noting, normally I base my opinions on something else. I didn't read these books, so I can't tell you what they kept and what they didn't. And
it's amazing you actually didn't read some source material before you watched the movie. Lately, that's pretty common.
So we have, of course, Stanley Tucci comes back, and Toby Jones comes back. Toby Jones is only there for like 30 seconds.
It was one of those, hey, it's Toby Jones! He's gone.
He probably shot like his entire part in the Hunger Games in like the morning, and then he went in that evening and shot something else or another movie. Yeah,
most likely.
Alright, our new people, we have this character, Finnick. Apparently this character is really crucial.
He's huge for the rest of the series.
Okay, because I remembered, shortly after the first one came out, obviously they like immediately started shooting this one.
Yeah.
And I remember it being like big news about who was going to play this character. Of course, it's a dude I've never seen before. At least if I've seen him before, I don't remember him. I don't even know his name.
His name is Sam Claflin. Claflin. I didn't see that L in there. Sorry. He was in Snow White and the Huntsman.
Of course. So. Yes, he is a new character, but he doesn't really... you say he gets bigger as it progresses. He doesn't really make an impression here. He's got his big dramatic... He has, like, whoever that person was with him. It looked like Grandma Death from Donnie Darko. But then we have Jeffrey Wright, who's it's Jeffrey Wright and Amanda Plummer. Amanda Plummer obviously is Yolanda from Pulp Fiction, and she's Christopher Plummer's daughter. And they're from the same district, and they have this bond, and they're, she calls them nuts and bolts because Amanda Plummer's totally off the wall. Like if her character in Pulp Fiction was just a little more sane. And Jeffrey Wright is basically Bunsen from the Muppets.
That's great comparison. Yes, nuts and bolts completely.
And then we have Jenna Malone, who is, speaking of Donnie Darko, who is, I've always liked her, but they turned her into like this character is kind of ferocious.
Yeah.
She carries around this big ass axe, and she's not afraid to be naked in front of total strangers.
Nope.
So,
and that's just her introduction scene.
Yeah. Much different than you've probably seen her. So, to say the least. If you've seen the right movies, like Saved, and, one more came to mind, and I lost it.
I love Saved,
The Dangerous Lives of Walter Boys. Those are pretty much the only new characters worth mentioning, unless I'm forgetting one. If I'm forgetting one, apparently they're not worth mentioning because I forgot them. I will also mention that Donald Sutherland is awesome, because President Snow in the first movie was just kind of this, I do evil things, like, I'm so evil, the only thing I'm not doing behind my desk is smoking a pipe.
He doesn't have a cat either.
But in this movie, he gets to really sink his evil teeth into this this time around. And he's like really like potentially threatening. Like, I mean, I know, he's like the creator of the Hunger Games, so he's obviously going to be threatening, but I mean, like, things are like personal now.
Yeah.
And even just sitting across from him at a table, you have to basically fear for your life. A problem I had was, and this is weird because I don't normally have this. I know, I've heard this complaint a lot about other movies, but I don't have the complaint myself often, so it's weird for me to say this now. One thing that really threw me off was how dark a lot of the scenes were. Because most of it, it's basically, once again, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, probably not. It's basically an illusion, where it's, this was in the first one, never mind. They can simulate in the arena whether it's night or day.
Exactly.
And a lot of this is at night. and most of these action scenes take place in this night setting.
You'd be screwed in a cam copy.
Like, it's not even... I don't even know if it's technically night. It's always like this blue tint, kind of. They kind of... I guess that's good, because it's if it's more of a tint than actual night, it shows that obviously it's an illusion.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the action scenes are kind of hard to see sometimes. At least I thought that. Maybe other people won't have problems with it, because a lot of people said that about Pacific Rim. I had no problems with Pacific Rim.
Not one bit.
So I guess that just depends on who you are, I guess. Maybe this is a little... I seriously have no idea anymore what's spoilery and what isn't. Especially since most people who see this are probably book readers.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll say this.
With movies like this, I think we can spoil whatever we want.
This movie ends so abruptly.
Yeah, oh god, yes. Look of Death, no credits. That's it.
But the thing is it's basically what you were saying, and it's what was said about something else recently. Machete kills.
Yeah.
It almost makes the whole movie feel like filler
Mm-hmm.
to get to another movie.
3 hours leading up to this final part. 2 parts.
The Two Towers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Harry Potter.
There's plenty of things to love about the Two Towers, don't worry.
Give it time.
But yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's good filler for sure.
Very much so.
But nevertheless, just feels like filler. It just feels like future exposition for
You are not getting a legitimate conclusion to this movie. It's all leading up to the final movies.
And another thing I was going to say was, this is the second movie in a franchise. And everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
Like, this really goes wrong, and Katniss is like, oh god, no, and then you say, and then this happened, and Katniss is all, oh god, and it's just getting worse as they say more things that have happened, and then the movie stops. That reminds me a lot of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. No.
They leave you with all this, as many downers as they possibly can, and then they stop you until the next movie.
Weirdly enough, that's probably why I like Empire the most.
It's just like I said, Peeta just kind of disappears, and then they say, "Oh well, he's here."
He's at the Capitol now.
It's like Han being frozen in carbonite and taken to Jabba's palace. So I think that's all I really need to say.
Hoffman's amazing in this movie.
Yeah, all of the new actors are, except the guy that plays Finnick. He doesn't have anything to work with in this movie. It's just his introduction to everything. It kind of sounds like, I don't know for sure. I haven't really thought about it enough to think of it to come to a conclusion, but maybe I just have a bias towards young actors because there's really not many that I don't think are just
blah,
emotionless planks.
Yeah,
and eye candy, basically. So But yeah, it's obviously worth checking out because it's just as good as the first.
And it's going to be in the theaters for months, so you got plenty of time.
So yeah, I guess we can move on. I think I desecrated that movie that I liked enough. I don't know how that happened, but
it happens every once in a while. But then again, you just have to.
I've probably done it a few times this year.
Yeah.
So. I'm sure Man of Steel is probably one of those. Alright. Our next movie is a very...
interesting?
Well... Okay. Our next movie is Delivery Man, I should probably say that.
Yeah, so I can know what the time mark is for you guys on the description. And it's basically advertised as this this normal, Vince Vaughn is a normal guy who gets himself into wacky antics movie. I saw the trailer. The first time we saw the trailer in the theater, I looked at you and said, oh my god, that's gonna fucking suck. Yes, you did.
There were a couple of things I weren't aware of.
It's not that movie, first off.
Number one, it's a remake of a French-Canadian movie that came out last... I didn't even think about this. But yeah, this is now the second Vince Vaughn starring shot-for-shot remake.
Wow.
Only instead of... but the thing is instead of just, taking, like, Psycho and turning it into color and putting masturbation in it, you have a French-Canadian movie with the same writer and director making it for America. Just shot for shot. Only he made it a little more. He got it's like
Death at a Funeral.
He wanted to, not quite, because Death at a Funeral was still raunchy.
Yeah.
What he did was he basically took this. Starbuck isn't. That's the name of the French Canadian movie, by the way. Starbuck isn't a very very dirty movie, but it is R-rated. And they basically took it and made it into this almost family movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's PG-13, and, there's Chris Pratt drops a fuck bomb. But still, it's basically played up as a family movie, more or less. They're really plugging it as a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
The release date, and then they even say they give thanks at the end of the movie, even though it's not fucking Thanksgiving in the movie. I'll tell you what it reminded me of. I'll probably have to explain this, but you'll know exactly where I'm coming from. Not to the extreme of this movie, but with the way it was advertised and what it turned out to be reminded me of Everybody's Fine.
I really like that movie too.
If you don't remember, Everybody's Fine is this not very well-known Robert De Niro movie from 2009 that was advertised as a Christmas family movie. And that movie is so depressing.
There's probably
Like,
people
we
still in
actually-
therapy for that movie, if I have a feeling.
We talked to some people when the movie was over who had had, like, a serious death in their family.
Yep.
And they were just getting over it. And they went to Everybody's Fine thinking it was this feel-good Christmas movie, because that's how it was advertised. Okay, let me tell you this. Sorry if this is a spoiler, but you probably wouldn't track this down anyway, because you're all lazy. But,
Viewership down.
Everybody's Fine is this very, very, very depressing movie about De Niro trying to get his family back together.
Correct.
In the last 2 minutes of the movie, he does get his family back together, and they have this Christmas get-together.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's happy. That final 2 minutes, they managed to make the whole trailer.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, some people were surprised when they came across
It's one of the last really great De Niro acting performances that have been out.
before Silver Linings Playbook.
Yes.
Between the original Meet the Parents and Silver Linings Playbook.
Yes.
But yes, it's the same. Starbuck was like, it's been around for a while now. It came out in Canada in 2011. Then it came out in the UK in 2012. And then it came here to the US March of this year. It got a limited release. So, and it's the same. The director actually co-wrote it with another guy. And then when they made Delivery Man, he basically took their script, changed a few things, and
The rest is history.
just put the rest of it. Just put his name on it.
Interesting.
It's the same script. It's the same shots. The only thing that's different is the exact same lines are said, just sometimes, not often, in different locations than they were in the other movie.
Interesting.
If for some reason somebody who knows the other movie comes across this video, I'll go ahead and say this real quick. One of the only things that changed was I don't know why they would change this. I don't know if they decided to make this the ultimate American sport. A plot point that keeps coming back is the fact that the main character and his family play a sport together. Okay. They're on like a team.
Yeah.
In Starbuck, it's soccer.
That makes sense.
And in Delivery Man, it's basketball. I don't know.
Everything's the same, it's just the sports change?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The dialogue is just like, okay, let me tell you this. There is a montage in the middle of the movie where obviously you can't have him meet, obviously the plot is he donated sperm almost 700 times. Mm-hmm. That ended up in like 533 children, 142 want to know his identity. That's a lot of numbers to remember. It breaks it down.
What about the other 400 that just don't care? We never talk about
obviously
them.
You can't have him meeting every single child in their own story, so he meets a few of the kids and bonds, and then there's a montage, naturally. This montage is he does the same things. Like one of them is like this drunk guy at a bar. Mm-hmm. One of them is one of those guys that plays guitar on the street, like Glenn answered him once.
Yes.
One of them is one of those guys that like gives tours in full costume. And we see him visit these kids over and over again in a montage, and following the girl around and brushing away guys that try to hit on her. This montage is edited like in exactly the same way as the original movie. Wow. Like in the same order. Like you see him, like to give a quick example, you see him with the drunk guy, then you see him with the tour guide, then you see him with the guitar player. And it's that way in Starbuck. It's that exact same order in Delivery Man. So yeah, and of course, to make fun of Delivery Man a little bit, they did throw in a little American change every now and then. Like he realized the first son he picks, he realizes is an athlete, so they go to the soccer field and he's there.
Okay, I thought that's where you were going to go with
It's
that.
just a normal scene. But when he discovers the kid and he says this, Thunderstruck starts to play. Mm-hmm. And they go, and then it's a basketball game in like this big, arena. Well,
it's a Nick game.
So, when I was watching Starbuck, I was watching that scene and indeed saying, wow, you know what Starbuck really needs? Some AC/DC. That would make a really big difference.
Just like Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man 3 didn't use it, so they managed to get the rights.
Yes. It is touchstone, so it makes sense.
But yeah, here's the thing. I should probably mention this. If you're fans of this show, I've never watched the show, but I know the concept. Basically, what he wants to do, he wants to meet his kids without revealing himself.
It's him.
It's, my name is Earl.
Really?
Think about it.
Yeah?
Because he wants to do a good deed for them before he moves on to the next one. That's what he's doing. That's what it reminded me of.
That's an interesting connection.
I've never watched that show, but I know the concept of it, and I think that's
obviously I have. I'm a huge Jason Lee mark, so
I think that's pretty much what it is.
Except for the fact that he doesn't. That Vince Vaughn didn't inherit a bunch of money. He's actually owing money to people now.
Yeah, and it wasn't Earl's kids or anything.
Nope.
But I mean,
the concept I completely understand.
Because he meets up with the first kid, which is totally blown in the trailer. He covers for the kid at the coffee shop so he can go to an audition, and the kid somehow immediately gets the part, okay? And then he goes to, one of them is, there's the athlete, of course. And then there's the,
And he coaches him basically from the cheap seats, like he would if he was it was known it was his real father.
This is when it goes into everybody's fine territory, literally. You know what? I'm glad I had seen Starbuck, because this would have made me say, "What in the fuck?" Because Starbuck is a comedy, but it plays off more. It's not as surprising when the drama comes in it as it would be if you didn't know what Delivery Man was going in. He finds his daughter, and she's like screaming on the phone, and she's she's really thin, and she's just screaming and throwing stuff, and crashing noises are coming out of her rooms and stuff. And then she doesn't come out for a while, and Vince Vaughn goes to check on her, and she's had a fucking drug overdose. Family-friendly Thanksgiving fun there.
No,
it's... they missed a golden opportunity in casting. We'll go ahead and talk about that, I guess. There's not many people Oh, God. Okay. Let me put this criticism on the table first, because that's what you're here for.
of course.
This movie is okay. It's very uneven. It doesn't always know what it's doing. And sometimes it can get really cheesy, and it's pretty overlong. But, I think there are people that would really like it as long as they knew what they were in for.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to go to this movie thinking it's something else and come out really displeased. So... I think it's an okay movie, but I would hesitate to recommend it, is what I'm saying. So now that that's out of the way, another thing that might put, the reason I'm saying this right now is because I was about to bring up the cast list. If I'm already pushing you away from a recommendation, there's really not many people in this movie that one would recognize.
Yeah.
Speaking of How I Met Your Mother, the actress Antichrist herself, Kobe Smulders, is his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend. You gotta have the cliche of the slacker that suddenly has to be a man. Alright. I suppose it was mean to call her the actress Antichrist. I've only seen her in 3 movies, and she was bad in all of them. So.
Yeah.
But she's done, I've never watched How I Met Your Mother. She could be, a comedy genius if I watched that. I don't know, because I haven't watched it. But in the movies I've seen her in, I don't necessarily enjoy her. So, well, it could be... I don't really remember much about her at all in The Avengers.
You just remember she's in it.
And she was just kind of there, here. I think the problem is I keep remembering Safe Haven.
Yeah.
And Kobe Smulders in Safe Haven is one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life.
But hashtag no disrespect.
That's another story for another day. There is Chris Pratt, who is Anna Faris's husband, who you might know from Parks and Recreation, and if you're into that Zero Dark 30, hopefully not Movie 43, who I normally don't, maybe I just don't get him. I mean, I did think he was funny, and, I think the reason I have it out for Chris Pratt is because the first movie I remember really seeing him in is the 5-Year Engagement.
Which
was one of the worst movies of last year.
Yes.
Where he was this really obnoxious, unlikable character.
We hate that movie.
But I think that was just a bad introduction because I like him pretty well in Parks and Recreation, and he's really funny here too. He's probably the best character in this movie. You have Bobby Moynihan from Saturday Night Live. Whatever. I mean,
he's on Mad TV too.
Was he?
Yeah.
Alright, he's maybe he's just not my thing, I guess.
It looks like he reminds me of a poor man's Horatio Sands.
Yeah.
Big time.
Well, the thing is I don't really watch Saturday Night Live anymore, unless like a really big host is on there, like Christoph Waltz or Edward Norton.
Yeah.
But I've seen him like pop up in a couple of movies every now and then, and he's just kind of that guy that's there.
Yeah.
So
he has no like.
So I have to. Okay, I'm not saying anything bad about him because I have no opinion on him.
There you go.
So there.
That's a good way to cover you.
Now, yeah. Now, last but not least. Obviously, you gotta have a big-ass courtroom scene. Because the kids are suing him. I don't know how that would work. But well, obviously the movie plays that out, so...
Yeah, the legalities.
The children who are suing... I'm not sure who exactly they're suing. But the person in their defense is Bruce Altman.
Yep.
Who is Jack Bradfield in Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And if you don't know Rookie of the Year, he was the pedophile with Elizabeth Mitchell in Running Scared. I would like to point out a very missed opportunity in casting here. They could have thrown in another recognizable face and they didn't. Especially, not so much in Delivery Man, but if you watch Starbuck, in the middle of the movie there's a plot point where one of the kids figures out who he is. And blackmails him basically for a place to crash.
Yeah.
But still wants to bond. He feels it's a necessary evil to blackmail him because he just wants to get to know him.
Yeah.
He's a weird fucking character though.
Yes, very much so.
In Starbuck he's a lot more emo. He's got the black hair and he's got the lip ring. The guy in Delivery Man didn't have that. He was just more of a creeper. That so should have been Keira O'Donnell from Wedding Crashers.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But they missed out, I guess. Maybe he was busy or something. Even though the movie is like really dramatic in a lot of parts, like when he actually mentioned that when Vince Vaughn answered my AMA question.
Mr. AMA, AJ.
He mentioned that I was putting over his darker parts. I was like, I really love when you play those, as funny as you are. And he was telling me about, that's what was great about this movie, was he was able to... There's so many different places he had to go as an actor because it's comedy and drama and, romance.
Yeah.
Just in one place. There is this this sounds bad to say, but this movie does have its funny parts, but pretty much the only funny part that's worth mentioning that doesn't have Chris Pratt in it is this really funny scene where he goes to, he's already met like 4 of the kids, and then he's following one of them, which is weird, because apparently he's gay, then apparently he's not, I don't know. In Starbuck he kisses that girl, and Delivery Man he doesn't, so I don't know what's up with that, but, anyway, he follows them, but it ends up being a meeting place for all 142 kids that want to meet him. And he's right seated in the center of them, because he didn't realize what it was when he came in. Even though he was handed a pamphlet that he didn't look at till after he was sat down and realized where he was. But obviously he's met 4 of them already. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to get out of the lobby.
I love this scene.
And each kid one at a time that he's already met comes up to him and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And there's this these few dramatic scenes where he has I don't know what the PC term is anymore. It changes every day, but he has, one of the children is in like, I don't know what you call it. I don't want to offend anybody. I've been offending our viewers all day, but now it's like PC territory, I don't know. He's got a kid that's in a type of institution.
He has a disability.
Is that what it is now?
I don't know, but that's what we're going to go with.
Because I was thinking I heard somebody say disability recently and they got corrected again. I don't know anymore. But regardless, he was passing himself off as, yeah, I'm that guy's adoptive father.
Yeah.
And once one kid comes up, another one comes up, and there's like 4 of them there, and plus him, and he's going through every time one comes up, he introduces them to the other, and it's just funny the way this plays out, because he just keeps doing it over and over again.
And we're the only ones laughing at this point, too. I noticed that.
I think the audience was just confused.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely one of those movies where most people that see it it's probably not going to be what they think it is.
Most people are really expecting a comedy out of this, and it is funny in places, but it's more drama than anything else.
Yeah, which is weird. So, because it's actually one of the way he was describing it, I was thinking, oh, it's one of those movies that's not necessarily Apatow territory, but those movies that can blend, comedy and drama. Like, some of them have equal parts comedy and drama. Yeah. Some of them are mostly comedy, but the drama is so there that they kind of balance out. But no, it seemed to be mostly drama.
Yeah, it was basically drama.
So everybody's talking to him for a Globe nomination.
I think it could happen. After watching the movie, I really think I can't say it's in the bag, but I'd say it's got a really good chance.
So yeah, if you're, like I said, I guess it just depends on who I'm talking to, whether I'd recommend this or not.
Yeah, I couldn't tell everybody to watch Everybody's Fine as much as I wanted to, because I know that a lot of people wouldn't take to it.
Yeah, because if you warn them, it'll probably turn them off.
Yeah.
So, you probably don't want to see, you probably don't want to spend Thanksgiving with your family watching Vince Vaughn rush his daughter to a hospital because of a drug overdose.
Nope. This is not a Thanksgiving movie.
Needle sticking out of her arm at the same time. It's also worth noting that another thing that's a little dirtier about the original is the very first scene of Starbuck is actually him
at the clinic.
At the clinic, yeah. And it's actually this really funny scene because they give him the cup and they give him the magazines and they say, "Whenever you're done." So we have this little montage that plays out of him looking over the magazines. Then he's opening all the magazines and laying them out on the table and basically looking and then basically trying it out. And then we see him doing it. And then there's a cut, and it's like he's gotten bored. He has stopped doing it, and he's just reading one of the articles in the magazine. As soon as I knew Delivery Man was being made, and I saw that scene in Starbuck, I was thinking, I'll bet this isn't in the American remake. So, yeah.
Sounds like the 40-year-old version with Andy's box of porn.
And when he watches Everybody Loves Raymond instead.
That's the only thing he's watching. Yeah.
Alright, there is no possible segue I could possibly do, so we're just going to go right into the next movie that's totally different.
This is all about difference in this review.
We're going from Everybody's Fine by way of Vince Vaughn to the movie that most people think is going to win Best Picture this year. And Best Director and Best Actor. And Adapted Screenplay. I don't think it's going to... I think this is that.
They're overestimating.
There's that movie every year. We're getting an Oscar video out early.
Yes, we are. Next week.
I think this is that movie where there's always, every single year, there's that movie that everybody predicts in October and November, and then by the end of the season, it's winning like 1 or 2. Remember, this time last year, this was Lincoln.
Yep.
Ironically enough.
Yeah.
We're obviously talking about the highly anticipated 12 Years a Slave because we're seeing it a month late. It's over a month late now. It can't. Its release. Its actual release was October 18th. But obviously, this was one of those movies that was going to take some time to spread out.
Yeah.
Shock surprise. Spike Lee has hailed it the best movie of the year. There's a picture on his Instagram of him posing with Steve McQueen and it's saying best director of his generation, and he made a Do the Right Thing reference with that's the Oscar truth, Ruth. So basically, this is there's a lot more people you'll recognize in this than Delivery Man.
Yeah.
Okay, or people you're about to recognize.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people who are about to blow up in this movie.
Okay, so obviously you probably know the plot by now. Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is been in so many things now. He was Denzel's partner in Inside Man. He was the villain in Four Brothers. He's in he got a lot of notices back in the day for Kinky Boots, for the few people that saw that movie. I think that's where most people's minds go if they've seen that movie. I'm sure I'm forgetting some too. But this is now his... He also did another movie, I wouldn't say similar to this, but he went through somewhat the same treatment in a movie called Red Dust that he did with Hilary Swank. I don't remember much about it, but I remember him like getting whipped a lot. But anyway, was that insensitive?
Boy.
Well, that's not what... Okay, that's not the way I meant it.
I'm aware you did.
Okay, so anyway, Solomon Northup was a real guy who wrote a book on this in like the 1800s. And obviously this really happened to him. He is he's free. Obviously he's black and he's free, which was,
unheard of back then.
And he has a whole family that's free. He has a wife, and I think it's a daughter, and I think the other kid is a son or another daughter. It's a son, I think. I don't remember. We only see them like twice.
His daughter's Quivention Wallace.
You didn't realize that?
No.
Yeah, Dwight Henry's in it.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now, actually. Nice Beast of the Southern Wild connection right there.
So here's the thing about this movie. You'll notice that, I guess I'm just going to go in chronological in this movie. I'll stop talking about it before I get into spoilers, so...
Smart move.
Because I know this is a movie that people will seek out. I assume.
It'll come eventually. If it's not in your theater now, wait until next month. It'll be in your theater.
Every now and then you have that one critic. There was actually a critic once that was at a screening of this, and when he came out, he said he was underwhelmed because he got, like, all of his white guilt out in The Butler, or something like that.
How much heat did that guy get?
He's, well, here's the thing, I don't even remember his name, if that helps you anything.
Ooh, wow.
Okay, so, we see two guys named Brown and Hamilton, I think their names were. It's Scoot McNairy and Taron Killam. It's worth noting that Taron Killam's part, Patton Oswalt auditioned for.
Man, what might have been?
Apparently Steve McQueen thought he'd be too recognizable and it'd be distracting. But apparently people made the complaint about Taron Killam anyway, so... and coincidentally enough, they made a 12 Years a Slave sketch on,
SNL.
Yeah. That they kind of mixed with Django a little bit, which was weird. This is totally... There's a lot of comparisons, obviously, but this is totally different from Django, to say the least.
Yeah.
But we won't go into those comparisons because, number one, I'm biased, and number two, it's not really a good comparison.
Yeah, we did an entire month on Tarantino.
Yeah. Yeah, I should probably get that out there right now. Obviously, I think Django's the best movie Django's the best movie in a very long-ass time, I'll just say that.
You were about to the decade, but then you, stopped yourself for a second.
It's probably even more than that. But these movies are not comparable at all.
No.
Because they're totally... obviously there's, some themes thrown in that are the same, and obviously the whole outline, as far as, slavery at that time period, but, apart from slavery and, all of that, the movies could not be more different.
Yeah.
So, I'll start off by saying, apparently, I was thinking this while watching it, and then I looked into it. Apparently, this is a complaint a lot of people are saying. Basically, it's him going from place to place. He starts off on a boat, like Amistad, which is funny because Chiwetel's in that movie.
Yeah.
And then he ends up with Paul Giamatti, who is a slave owner. And then Paul Giamatti sells him off to Benedict Cumberbatch. And Paul Dano's there too, and they basically fight over him. And then he's sold off to Fassbender. And the movie plays out from there. Apart from this place-to-place thing, the first half of the movie moves really fast. Like, insanely fast.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. And like I said, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the first 20 minutes. One of the people you might recognize on the cast list is Michael Kenneth Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Kenneth Williams is mainly known for being... I didn't watch The Wire, but I think his name was Omar. And he pops up in a few places. He's Chalky White on Boardwalk Empire.
Yep.
So people recognize him now, obviously. He's on 2 massive shows, and people just recognize him now.
Okay.
So, they're on the boat, and they bring him in, and he's chained up like Buscemi and Con Air, basically. They got the mask on him and everything. And it's like, holy shit, what the fuck did this guy do? And they take his chains off him, and we get to know his character. Like, he's gonna help them.
Mm-hmm.
In the very next scene, they stab him and kill him and throw his body over the boat.
Every time I see a body get thrown over something, I always go back to the lady killers.
Yeah. So... And we move at that pace for a while, because here's the thing. It really... There is a massive pacing problem. And that's... I'll get to that really. It's a basic outline of the whole movie, but I'll get through it real quick here. You would think it would be evenly spread out, because he's going from place to place. The boat segment and the Giamatti segment, then Cumberbatch, then Fassbender. Well, the boat, Giamatti, and Cumberbatch, and Paul Dano all happen in like the first 45 minutes. And then you have like almost an hour and a half on Fassbender's plantation, I guess. That's a way to fuck with pacing.
Yeah.
Because it makes the... Because you almost expect it... I mean, obviously, if you know the whole layout and you know everybody that's in it, you know Fassbender is basically the last place he goes.
Of course.
And the ending goes into that. You kind of get this rhythm going of him going from owner to owner. But then when you just stop, and then it's kind of that same thing till the end. Like, some of the... I mean, okay, Fassbender's getting a shitload of acclaim for this. Like, everybody's saying he's a shoo-in for supporting actor. I'm still... I mean, most people are saying he's the shoo-in, but obviously I'm being called crazy because I'm not sure. I put him back in my predictions, but I could really see it as that one performance that gets snubbed, that everybody loves.
We'll see that tomorrow.
I actually thought I mean, I know, you know, that's what slaves went through over and over and over again. But in all honesty, as far as pacing a movie, a lot of the scenes with Edwin Epps felt a little repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just me. But, like I said, you know, it probably would feel repetitive given that the movie had a thing going and then was just one thing for the entire second half. But I mean, there's a lot of harrowing, memorable things happen. Like, I was actually, when I was watching, this will sound weird, but hear me out. When I was watching this, I was comparing it in my head to The Social Network. But here's the thing. When you watch, not the movies themselves, obviously.
No, of course not.
When you watch a movie, obviously you don't remember the whole thing, unless you've seen the movie over and over again, and it's one of your favorites. Then you probably know every single scene from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But most movies you don't remember every scene from beginning to end, but there are those scenes that stick out. What makes The Social Network as great as it is, and what 12 Years a Slave was doing very well, was instead of getting a great scene and then just going, and then another great scene, and then going, and then another great scene, there's a great scene almost one right after the other. Just non-stop. Because you have, there's the boat scene by itself with Zimmer's score. It was there and then it kind of left, but between them on the boat and them it kind of jumped around. What was Zimmer doing? I never thought about this till just now. Okay, but when they're on the boat, skipping Giamatti apparently, when we're on the boat and some of the scenes with Paul Dano, Zimmer does this thing with the score that doesn't feel... It's a good thing. It doesn't feel like it's in the right movie, though. Because it's this really... It's like I don't know what it is by listening to it, but it's like... It's sort of reminiscent of the scratchiness of his Joker score from The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. It's this really dooming score, and this, like, dread-inducing score, which, which Reznor also kind of accomplished in The Social Network. It's kind of that same thing. But it was just used on the boat in some Paul Dano scenes. But there's those scenes, there's this really great scene with Giamatti where they, I don't know if you noticed this or not, and I'm a huge fanboy for this kind of thing.
Okay.
There's this scene where they walk into a room and Giamatti is showing off these slaves that are like stripped naked, and he's saying that, like inspect them, do what you want with them, and all that. And then he walks through, and then he's with this other guy who wants to buy, I don't know how to say her name, she was the woman in Pariah. But she had the 2 children, and he calls the boy over and he makes him like do this, exercise thing to show the guy that's gonna buy him how in shape he is and how useful he'll be. And then we go over to Cumberbatch, and he does business with Cumberbatch. And then Cumberbatch says he wants Eliza, and he wants Solomon, who's under the name Platt now. But then the one guy is going to buy Eliza's son. So Eliza starts to freak out, and there's this big dramatic moment where her son is separated from her, and her daughter too. And she has this massive breakdown, and she's starting to cause a scene. So Giamatti has her escorted out while she's kicking and screaming. And he makes Solomon start playing the violin to kind of ease the sound and keep the buyers from getting discouraged.
Yeah, of course.
And then we have this shot of just Solomon just with this frightened look on his face playing and trying to figure this out. And then Cumberbatch buys Solomon. Everything I just said is shot in one long unbroken take. And that is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times it took to do that, but that's some really impressive camera work. And there's no, sometimes you can kind of see maybe there'll be a like when you pass through a door or pass through another room or something, and there's, you kind of pan through black, where there could have been an obvious cut. There's no place where a cut could have been. It was all just, I don't even know how long this scene went on, but that was just that scene really stands out in my mind. And you have these, there's these emotional moments that aren't exactly completely on the surface that you kind of have to look for. I think that's why Chiwetel has so much buzz, because people are spotting those things in his performance. But there's this moment where your heart kind of sinks, where, and it seems like just on the surface, you're not really thinking about it, you're just watching it. It seems like a throwaway comment, and just kind of happens, but you don't realize until you think about it, how oh shit of a feeling it is. Cumberbatch calls Solomon over, and he gives him obviously Solomon is hoping this is just temporary because he's not a slave, and there's some when Brown and Hamilton sold him off, there was surely somebody's gonna find him and figure this shit out. So he has all that hope. And then Cumberbatch gives him this violin as a gift. I think it's a violin. There's things there's so many instruments that look alike.
The fiddle.
That do the same thing. Regardless, he gives him the instrument.
Yes.
And Solomon's really pleased and really happy and grateful. And then Cumberbatch says, I'm sure you'll make great use of it with our time over the years. And it just seems like a throwaway comment, but then you realize apparently the Plain of Solomon is going to be here for many, many years.
And Cumberbatch is the only owner that shows any compassion whatsoever to Solomon.
Yeah. Cumberbatch is complete opposite, just happens to be on the same land, and this is Paul Dano.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just say this. I don't condone what happened to slaves. At all. Believe me. But I fucking love Paul Dano in this movie.
Yeah.
He is so, he gets a lot of hate for some reason, but Paul Dano is great, I think.
He's great in everything he does.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
I'm a big fan of him. And in this movie, he is so fucking vile that I love the character. And of course, I can't say it, of course, but, he basically taunts them, and there's this whole...
Your song.
There's this whole segment where he sings this song.
Oh my god.
we see, he's basically, like, he tells the slaves to start clapping their hands, and then once they get a rhythm going, he starts to sing this song, and he's, like, dancing around and really getting into it, and then we see his singing goes on over the scene as we see a montage of them working, and walking long distances and all that, and everything they had to do. And the more the song progresses, the more Dano's character is getting into it, and the scene goes on for a while. Like, I just thought that was a really well done scene. And speaking of well done scenes, I've been here. I'm pretty much going to quote what reviews have said, but because I don't really know another way to put it. If I hadn't read reviews, I would have worded it the same way. One of the things that's really drawing attention with this movie is that a lot of the shots look like paintings.
I can see that.
Like a lot of they're basically transition shots.
It's going to be big for cinematography.
Yeah. Like normally you get just these, like, you know, throwaway shots of, like, you know, just an open field or a house or whatever, but every transition shot from scene to scene is this shot that's just
grandiose.
You would think would be unimaginable unless somebody painted it with their own imagination in hands. I'm referring there's this really cool scene with, like, it sounds artsy, but you just have to see it.
Yeah.
It's the silhouette of, like, this low-hanging tree, and the sky in the background is entirely orange. It's almost like a Gone with the Wind shot. But the one that really stands out is this scene where Solomon is on, like, a handmade raft, and he's in, like, this swampy river, and we get an overhead shot of that. And it looks like a painting it almost looks like an illusion. It looks like a painting that's actually moving. It's just a really good shot. There's so many really good shots. There's a lot of, to coincide with the long take that I love with Giamatti, where the camera's constantly moving and going from, like, room to room without cutting. There's also really long shots, like, at one point, Solomon loses his cool.
Yeah.
And whips Paul Dano, which is a really fucking bad idea. So they do this botched lynching, which is stopped by the one guy that, it's another guy who you think is going to show compassion because he's like, you know, that's Cumberbatch's property, you can't do that. So they drop him, but he's still hanging by the noose, but his feet are barely touching the ground, so he basically has to just use his tiptoes on the ground to keep from choking. But the guy that supposedly showed compassion by saying, that's Cumberbatch's, don't touch him, you can't kill him, just leaves him like that.
Yeah.
And goes and gets Cumberbatch. And there's this really, really long shot of him just having to, which shows Ejiofor's commitment to the role too, because this is like him actually hanging there for this very, very long take. So then, and there's also a similar one with, like, the way that this wasn't necessarily a long take. I thought it might have led to one, but it's another one where the score really came in, the dooming score, where it's after he's whipped Paul Dano. And Dano gets pissed and says he's going to go get a mob to lynch him. And you have that guy there that knows he's Cumberbatch's property that says, you can't leave from that spot, because if you leave the plantation, I can't help you.
Yeah.
So he leaves. So Solomon is left here, basically awaiting his own death, because he has no choice but just sit here and wait for Paul Dano to come back with a lynch mob. And you have that score playing that just really sets that dreading tone. God, this movie was just masterfully made.
Yes, in every single way possible.
But then we get to Fassbender's plantation, and Fassbender has a wife that's actually almost, if not more, evil than he is. She's been around for a little while, but she's Sarah Paulson. But to get her across at all, you have to say American Horror Story. Because I think she's been in every season now. She was the main character in the second season, and she's a crucial character in the third season. I think she was only in the first season, like, a few times, if I remember correctly. But people know who she is because of that now. But the thing, I'm not really sure how to say this, especially without getting in trouble.
Ooh.
No, not that kind of trouble, but, like, these people who think Fassbender's a shoo-in. Fassbender's really good in this, but I wasn't sure how to take the character. Because it seems, I know it makes him more human, but it just seemed very bizarre. He's built up as this fucking monster. But he's almost overshadowed by Sarah Paulson.
Sounds familiar.
But the thing is there's this subplot where there's this slave Patsy who is Lupita Nyong'o, who is getting a lot of Oscar buzz. Which, if you watch the movie, you know why.
Definitely.
For a while, she's just there, and you're like, so. But then, as her screen time progresses, the more intense that performance gets. So, to put it this way, I won't say whether or not this is a spoiler. There is a point in time where Patsy has reached the end of her rope so much that she wakes Solomon up in the middle of the night and propositions him to drown her, just so she can not do this anymore. Because Edwin Epps actually comes in, it's like a ritual. He comes in the middle of the night and he rapes her, basically. So, and that scene. There's a couple of, it may be rape, it may not be rape scenes in this movie that are just, that first scene before they even show the title, there is some kind of sexual scene. It's kind of, I think I have an idea, but I don't really want to say on camera what's happening, but it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, a lot of those, it becomes the way the film was shot, too. It's like sometimes you really couldn't tell what was going on.
But the thing that kind of threw me off with the Epps character is that, he's a heavy drinker, so he's drunk like all the time.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found weird, but maybe it's one of those, they're setting you up for one thing and it ends up being another, that kind of put you off. Maybe that's what it was. But what I'm talking about is, he's built up as this giant monster. His very first scene is him, he's quoting from the Bible, but he's basically turning the words around so they fit slavery. But then suddenly, in his third or fourth scene, he gets mad at Solomon for being around Patsy. He says something to her and whispers to her, and Epps thinks that he's there's a romance there or something.
Yeah.
So he comes at Solomon with a knife, and this scene turns Edwin Epps into a bumbling idiot.
Yeah, completely.
He slips in pig shit. He tries to jump the fence and falls short. I didn't really know how to take that scene. Was it supposed to be funny? I think it kind of was.
I think it was trying to lighten the mood a little bit, because it's really doom and gloom for most of the movie.
But just the way his character is built up, I found that scene really awkward.
Yeah, I see that.
And there's I don't know, his character was just a little weird to me. I don't know. But Fassbender owns it, so. I want to throw this out there real quick, because this is something that a lot of people are bringing up. There's a quote in this movie that people are in love with, and they when they're talking about great lines in the movie, this gets brought up a lot. And it's in all the trailers too. It's when they're on the boat and they're talking about surviving, and Solomon says, "I don't want to survive. I want to live." And everybody really takes to that quote. That's a quote from WALL-E.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
I just want to throw that out there in case people forgot. So, yeah, obviously it fits. It's probably a more emotionally charged in the context of when Ejiofor says it than when Judd Garland says it. But even so, I just like that thrown out there that John Ridley must be a big WALL-E fan.
You need to put that on IMDb because it's not listed here.
But yeah, the only really fatal thing is once they're on the Epps plantation for a while, the movie starts to slow down a little bit.
Mm.
But there are scenes there that really get to you and get under your skin and grab your attention, and most people know about this scene already, but I'll go ahead and mention it. so I'll go ahead and mention it. There's this really harrowing scene where, obviously Epps has a thing for Patsy. So she's tied to the whipping post, and she's stripped naked, and Sarah Paulson tells Fassbender to whip her. But Fassbender won't do it. So he makes Solomon do it. And he actually puts a gun to Solomon's head and says, if you don't whip her as hard as you can, I'm going to kill every slave on the plantation. And this scene is just gruesome. And really hard to take.
Yeah, completely.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of sniffling into the right side of me during this scene.
And Ejiofor really, like in all of his scenes, Ejiofor just really, really went to that place. So, yeah, but a lot of people in this movie had to go to that place, which makes the ensemble all the more impressive. So,
it may have the sag in the bag. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, but that's...
Yeah, I don't even know what would come. I'm sure there's things, but
August?
Off the top of my head, yeah, but regardless, Cumberbatch will be in there.
Yes, exactly.
So, that's pretty much all I can say now without saying the rest of the ending. I guess it's worth mentioning Brad Pitt.
Amish Brad Pitt?
Yeah, obviously he's got 2 scenes towards the end, but you probably read that in reviews by now. And yeah, it is distracting, but I'm not as distracted by that kind of thing as a lot of people are. Because with as many movies as I've seen plenty of movies now that are smaller where you have really big names and really small parts. So it wasn't all that weird, but to a normal moviegoer that would go see this, knowing Brad Pitt's in it, first off, you'll probably totally forget he's in it until he finally shows up. And then once he's there, it probably will throw you off, to be honest, but yeah.
Just like The Counselor.
He's in The Counselor a lot more than he's in this.
Yeah. But it's Pitt and Fassbender in the movie together again, in the same year.
Oh yeah, I was thinking you were referring to Bastards, but yeah, The Counselor as well.
Yeah.
His older Rain voice was coming out a little bit when
Completely.
he was playing bass. No, he wasn't playing a bass guitar and I said it wrong. His name is Bass. So anyway, that's pretty much 12 Years a Slave. So yeah, if you, I was warned going in, it probably is best to not go in thinking it's going to be one of the best movies you'll ever see.
No.
It's more than likely to be if you're not thinking that.
Yes.
I mean, it's not one of the best movies I've ever seen, but
no.
It's one of the best movies of this year.
Yes.
It's top 5. Number 5, but top 5. So, there's a lot of good movies this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, they came from out of fucking nowhere in the last couple of months. And my top 3 is still movies from March and back. April and back.
I haven't done mine yet. I still need to get on the ball about that.
Alright. Our last movie is another movie with Oscar buzz, but even after having seen it, I really liked this movie. But
yeah,
even after having seen it, I'm not going to predict it for anything. We're talking about All Is Lost, which is the movie where you have the director of Margin Call, J.C. Chandor, who wrote and directed Margin Call, which was a movie filled to the brim with dialogue. He got an Oscar nomination for original screenplay. And it had an ensemble cast in it. It had it had Spacey, it had Paul Bettany, Zachary Quinto, Jeremy Irons.
Yes.
This movie, also written and directed by J.C. Chandor, has maybe 8 lines of dialogue and 1 character.
Yes.
There's another voice in static. That's about the closest we get to a second character in this movie.
Correct.
And God bless the movie, it starts right away.
You can argue that the boat could technically be a character, kind of like how Richard Parker is in Life of Pi.
Kind of like every single person in the world made the joke. At the 2010 Oscars, the boulder from 127 Hours was Robin supporting actor. But yeah, this reminded me a lot of 127 Hours.
Mm-hmm.
But in where 127 Hours was claustrophobic, you got a whole lot of room in All Is Lost. It may not be habitable, but it's a lot of space.
Yeah.
It takes place in 2 places. I don't know if it's a spoiler to say that or not. I'll just say the main plot to avoid anything.
Okay.
Yeah, the movie starts right away because he's asleep, like, in that little cabin in the bottom of the boat. And he's woken up by a big-ass crash. And he goes outside and he looks over, and his boat has crashed into one of those giant things. I don't know exactly what they're called.
Cargo boxes?
Yeah, I think so. He crashed into the corner of one, and it put a massive hole in his boat. So basically, he's trying to survive with... He's like, what did it say? Like 1,700 miles away from anything.
Yes.
He has this big-ass hole in his boat, and he's so far out, he can't get a hold of anybody. It's just static. And he's quickly sinking. And when you and I were going to this, I said... I read this. The script was 32 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
The movie's an hour and 45 minutes. I was wondering how in God's name they accomplished that without redundancy or tediousness. When this movie ended, I had no idea it was ending.
Yeah, no lie.
Because it really does just go by. Because there's just one thing going on after another. You're gonna think I'm weird for saying this if you haven't seen the movie. Especially since I'm talking about a movie that has one actor in it that's on a boat.
That's not a Broadway play.
Through the whole duration of the movie. This movie has spectacular effects.
Yeah.
Like, there's this, you see it on the poster, there's this very long scene where he's caught in a storm. A really, 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 really fucking bad storm. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, that was really cool of them to throw Robert Redford in the middle of a storm like that. Wonder how they filmed it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's, like, I had no idea how they got... I mean, I'm sure it's obvious if you, like, really look into it or think about it, but just watching it on the surface, how this movie was shot and how it was made, I don't really have an idea.
No.
Because it's very,
realistic.
Yeah. But, you do have, your problems that keep arising. It's like, open water might come to mind, too. Like, there is a particular moment where, just when you think everything has gone wrong that can go wrong, it doesn't really lead to anything, but, we get a lot of underwater shots from under his, boat. And, we see a shitload of sharks swarming underneath him. And yeah, the camera work is actually so authentic, I would be prepared of possibly getting seasickness while watching it. It's not like Paul Greengrass shaky cam or anything, but it's just, like, with the boat movement and the sound of the waves and the camera just kind of playing along with that, it can mess with you.
It could be a hazard, potentially.
We're getting into our film nerdy situation here saying this, but the cinematography. Like, there's this one particular shot where he's climbing up the mast to do something, and we have this, I couldn't tell if it was real or if it was an effect, but it's this perfect shot of Redford at the top of the mast, and it's almost like it's right next to him is the entire sun, like, in full view. And just great shots are sprinkled like that. Which is very impressive because it's hard to get really great shots in the middle of the ocean and nowhere else. A lot of the great underwater shots, too, especially when they're looking up. And we were joking, this movie could basically be called God Hates Robert Redford.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much everything that can... That's what helps it sustain such a runtime, is pretty much everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Which makes it all the more exciting because you really have no idea. I literally had no idea right till the very end whether or not he was going to survive. And I'm not going to tell you the answer to that either.
Yep.
Then there is, oh yeah, I just wanted to throw this out as a joke. You made the joke about Castaway.
Yeah.
Well, towards the beginning of the movie, obviously luckily he was lucky enough to be stranded on his boat. So, There's a scene fairly early where we see him in the cabin and he's shaving. And it's like, Robert Redford is intentionally shaving at this very moment so this does not turn into Castaway. No Castaway for Robert Redford, I'm getting rid of this right now. And surprisingly, there were no fatalities trying to shave on a rocking boat like that.
He should have at least cut himself, that's more realistic.
He's a professional shaver, I would guess.
Apparently so.
Because you don't really see Robert Redford with facial hair that often.
No.
Maybe a mustache every now and then, but... But yeah, so yes, I was cautious going into this because I really had no idea how they were going to sustain that runtime. Especially with 32 script pages.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was like, what are they going to do?
Because normally, I keep hearing, the average is a page equals a minute. So if they went by the script just as is, this movie would have been 32 minutes long, and it's an hour 45.
It's a short, starring Robert Redford, that will win everything.
It could have been.
Yeah?
But
I can see that.
But no, it worked just fine feature length.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
and you do have those moments where you feel his disappointment. Like, obviously, in all of these movies, you have that moment where you think they're going to be rescued, but then, of course, they're not. And it really bums you out every time. So, yeah. So, yes, despite the review itself, I would highly recommend The Hunger Games.
Yes, me too.
Definitely track down 12 Years a Slave, which, like I said, I think with all the buzz, I think most people are going to try and track that down anyway, if they haven't already.
If it's not in your local theater right now, there is a normal time around the beginning of January till February that most theaters get movies for an Oscar run. So if it's not there now and you don't have access to it, wait a little bit. By January, you should have access to the movie, even if it's there for a week.
And all His Loss has been out for a little while, but I think it's actually been out as long as 12 Years a Slave has.
Yeah. We're behind this week on those two movies.
But yeah, make sure you find it too. Like,
Yeah,
even if it doesn't sound interesting, I promise there's plenty of payoffs.
Definitely.
And I guess, and I don't mean this in quality, I mean this in what you're expecting. See Delivery Man at Your Own Risk.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not what you're anticipating.
If you're thinking you're going into a comedy, you're right, but you're really wrong because it's more of a drama.
Alright, I think we're done here.
So, next week, dear God, we're going to have a lot of filming to do. We got a lot of stuff to talk about next week. So, we got a Versus coming up on Sunday, which are final scary themed Versus of 2013, which is Scott. And next week, we've got Homefront, we've got Frozen, we've got The Book Thief. I don't know if there's anything else on top of that as well, maybe. We'll see what we get based on that. So, AJ, any parting words for the video?
That's it.